Good morning, everyone, for a third time. This morning is December the 3rd, 2022. And today I would like to invite you to a day of meditation online where the theme is cultivating the heart. So later on today, I'll give a talk on cultivating the heart where I'll involve both a little bit of the contemporary psychologist perspective on what the heart means, and include some energetic perspectives that go back millennia, as well as Buddhist perspective on the heart, so that we can, and what we mean by cultivating it. So that'll be the talk. And as the theme is cultivating the heart, I will, a bit later on, I'll guide you in some meditation practices based on, first of all, becoming present, and then one of the four heart qualities, which are loving kindness or warm benevolence, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, and or some of the related qualities, such as recognizing our innate goodness, gratitude, and forgiveness. So we'll do some of those. I'm not sure which one at the moment. I'm just kind of playing it by ear, and when we do our meditation, I'll invite you into practicing one of those. So for those of you who haven't been on one of these days with me before, the way we do it is I have a bit of an orientation and an introduction right now, usually lasts about 20 minutes. Then we do 1 or 2 guided meditations. And then we have 1 or 2 silent meditations. And we have morning tea at about 20 minutes to 11 or quarter to 11 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. We're running on Australian Eastern Daylight Time. I'm in Lismore. I'm coming to you. I should pay respects to the traditional custodians of this land that I'm on, by the way. I'm coming to you from Winjawibal country in the Bundjalung Nation. I pay respects to the elders of this country, present, past, and emerging. So that's where I'm coming from today. And the schedule for today involves this orientation and introduction right now, then 2 guided meditations, 1 or 2 guided meditations, then a silent meditation, then a break for morning tea at about 20 to 11, and then a Dharma talk at 11. And the Dharma talk today is about cultivating the heart. And then we have sometimes we have some question and answer, sometimes we don't. And we'll usually have another guided meditation. So there's probably at least 2 guided meditations today. Then we have lunch at 12:30 and then come back at 1:30. Many people leave at 12:30, but you're welcome to stay. And some people stay, and we have 2 more meditations in silence, going between walking and sitting, depending on what's comfortable for you. And then we have a Dharma discussion at 2:30. So that's the day. I just want to check, do you know how to do walking meditation, Diane? Do you know about walking meditation? Yeah. Okay, great. So we usually, when our silent meditations, we usually go backwards and forwards between sitting and walking meditation, depending on what you feel like doing. If you want to sit for the whole hour or half an hour, whatever we're doing, you're welcome. It's really up to you. And again, also, you do what you need to do in terms of postures. If you need to lie down, you're welcome to lie down. If you need to sit up, you're welcome to sit up. If you need to stand, you're welcome to stand. If you need to go to the loo, you're welcome to go to the loo. You do what you need to do. Yeah, that's about it, I think. So I usually give a little bit of a spiel about meditation. And it's a clarification between the types of meditation we do. And there are essentially 2 aspects to meditation that I understand. You've probably heard me say this many times, but I'll repeat it. there is the serenity aspect and the insight aspect. And 2,600 years ago, the Buddha didn't differentiate between these two. He just talked about different ways of cultivating the heart. And sometimes he would emphasize insight, and sometimes he would emphasize serenity. And the practice that he did, he essentially went the path of serenity first, and then insight. Now, serenity essentially is about quietening the mind, calming the mind, stilling the mind, getting clarity, having clarity about the mind, with the mind. And it emphasizes samadhi. Samadhi means the gathering in and placing of attention in one place, essentially. It's the settling of attention. It's the unification of mental energies so that they're all going in the same direction. It's this collective sense of focus. Sometimes it's described as one-pointedness, but I prefer it to be described as unification of mental energies, sometimes meant like attention or awareness. It's just there's not a dispersion of energies going everywhere. It's just focusing on one thing and settling into one thing. And what that does is that it really calms the mind, it settles the mind, and it stills the mind. There is some emphasis on being able to focus in meditation practice, being able to focus on something that's still. So I had an insight the other day on a retreat with Eva Natanya, who was on a conference that I was attending. I was attending the retreat, and we were doing mindfulness of breathing and moving our attention through our body. And she emphasized finding the stillness in awareness of the process. And that was like a light globe moment. It was fantastic. It was go, oh yes, of course. You know, you sit back and get this collected attention on the knowing. And then in that way, your mind stills and quietens. And another recent revelation for me. I mean, I've kind of known this all for many years, but it just became really clear that serenity meditation, or this focused emphasis on samadhi, also emphasizes silence. Silence, so stillness and silence. And the silence part of it, it is like, well, you know, sometimes teachers describe it like listening to the silence between sounds, like, you know, listening to the silence between words people are speaking, for example. I've never found that very helpful because I can always hear something. But I found it helpful to think about the silence beneath the sound. It's like what's holding the sound. The sound is arising out of this deep silence. And then I did hear Stephen Snyder refer to it just the other day. Stephen Snyder, I'm doing some work with Stephen Snyder right now. He does some really great meditation practices. He talked about, it's like, actually he talked about the stillness as the ringing, like ringing in your ears, you know, like the ringing in our ears. It's like the stillness is like that. So silence, stillness, gathering of attention, gathering of awareness, settling, stabilizing. What happens with that is that we're able to see clearly. We're able to see through our delusions, see through our creations, actually. We're actually more able to see how we create the world with mental formations, mental creations. You know, we create this world around us as really solid and lasting and forever. And in fact, it is illusionary. So we see through that. And when we see through that, we see a certain sort of silence and stillness and stability. And we see the way things actually are. We see the conditions as conditions, and we see the unconditioned. In other words, we see in some languages, and in Zen, they talk about it as the absolute. And I think in Theravada Buddhism, we would probably call it the unconditioned, or nibbana. So this is what we see when we start to look, and with insight, what we're doing is we're investigating. We're seeing with a kind of a questioning mind, an inquiring mind, what is actually going on here? And with that, we have mindfulness is very powerful here too. In fact, those of you who know the 7 factors of awakening, it's this insight and serenity. I'm hesitant to call it bifurcation, because it was only bifurcated and made different aspects with the Visuddhimagga, which was a text that was an enormous text, a tome that was written about 9 centuries after the Buddha's passing. And in it, it highlights all the different meditation practices and so on. And they differentiate between serenity and insight. There's a kind of a bifurcation of these 2 aspects. In the time of the Buddha, there wasn't any bifurcation. It was just, the cultivation of insight, or the cultivation of wisdom, and you're using both the serenity and insight aspects. So it could be summarized with the 7 factors of awakening, and I'll just briefly remind many of you about the 7 factors of awakening. The first factor is mindfulness, which is described in many different ways, but I'm choosing to describe it now as soft awake presence, as Analio describes it, just this presence with experience. The second factor of awakening, and this leads on to the second factor, sometimes they're described as in a sequence, investigation of dharmas, which is another way of describing inquiry. So you're inquiring into things. The third factor is energy, like the perseverance and the persistence at doing something. And those 3 factors generally summarize what we find in insight, the insight aspect of meditation. The next factor is joy. And joy arises when we start to persevere and we start to see things. And it's described as piety, which is sometimes understood as this kind of energetic, uplifted energy, bubbling energy. But it is also described as rapture. And that is a feature of serenity meditation. The next factor is tranquility, which is definitely a feature of serenity meditation. Tranquility here, passaddhi, it's in Pali, it means a relaxed body, a calm mind, a still mind, a quiet mind. So there's that passaddhi. The 6th factor is samadhi, or concentration. And that's the gathering together of mental energies. And the 7th factor, sorry, I'll just go back. Joy, tranquility, and concentration, or samadhi, are definitely factors of serenity meditation. So in these 7 factors of awakening, we have the features of insight, as well as the features of tranquility. And they all culminate in equanimity, which is this unshakability, which is the state of mind of one who is awake. Hi, John. I'm going to get you to turn you mute your mic. Thanks, John. Thank you. So an equanimity is the result of both insight meditation, in being able to understand things and see things clearly, as well as a result of serenity meditation, interestingly. And it is also the culmination of these, the previous 6 factors. So today the focus, if we're going to choose anything, it's more on serenity, if anything. And when we talk about the heart qualities, normally they're understood as within the serenity categories, because they involve samadhi, they involve an emphasis on absorption and an emphasis on concentration. And with absorption, it's like we become that experience. Like there's a kind of a sense of unity with the experiences that we're focusing on. So for heart qualities, the traditional boundless divine abodes, they are qualities that we can take up as objects of our attention, and we can become absorbed into them, so that they become us, and we can experience a sense of unity with them. And there's another feature here, and I might bring this up in the talk, I don't know yet, but there's a feature called boundlessness that we find with the 4 heart qualities. Boundlessness in Pali is called appamana, and it is this sense of losing boundaries, a kind of sense of expansiveness. And when I invite you to some of these meditations, I will invite you to let boundaries go, like the boundaries between self and other, like let them dissolve, and sort of see the dissolution of that sense of internal and external, and see the unity in that, see the boundlessness of it. Boundlessness is also a feature of many not only is it a feature of the 4 Brahma Viharas, but it is also a feature of highly concentrated states. And some of you have done an emptiness retreat with me, a retreat on the steps to emptiness. Many of the features of those stages were boundlessness. One of the features was a sense of boundlessness. And I would say that boundlessness and boundlessness is a feature of samadhi, of concentration, and it is also, I think it's also a feature of being awake, like waking up. So I'll just finish my little kind of introduction on this note, that the boundless 4 divine abodes, which are both relationship qualities and also states of concentration and absorption, they are the way that awakened beings relate to themselves and others. The way that it is the way they abide in the world. They abide in these states of boundless loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, well, forgiveness if you want, innate goodness, recognizing innate goodness, and also kind of gratitude. These states of an open heart, they abide in these states. And for us who aren't completely awake, it is a taste of temporary awakening, temporary liberation. It's like we abide in these divine abodes, these awakened abodes. So they're really wonderful practices to do, and they're really healing. Okay, so I think that's about enough from my introduction. So I'll turn the recording off, and I'll start it up again, and I'll guide you in I'll ask if there's any questions first of all, and then I'll guide you in a meditation.